Hello and welcome to Simply Balanced, the podcast where we dive into, well, all things balanced. I'm your host, Taylor Grasso, a registered dietitian with a passion to helping you find your unique Balance Girl aesthetic in this often hectic world. Each episode will explore different facets of living a balanced life, whether it's unraveling the latest nutrition trends, discovering mindful eating strategies, or discussing tips for a balanced lifestyle that fits your routine. Balance isn't about perfection, it's about making choices that feel right for you, nurturing your body and mind, and enjoying life's simple pleasures. So whether you're sipping your morning coffee, heading out for a walk, or winding down for the evening, I'm thrilled to have you join me. So let's dive in and talk, well, all things balanced. Hello, besties, and welcome back to another episode of Simply Balanced. This week is my first time having a guest on the episode, so I am super pumped, and you guys all know and all love him if you follow me on TikTok.
I hope you love me.
Zachary. And Zack and I are going to talk a little bit about, we're going to do just a brief intro on our relationship and how we ended up getting together. We're going to talk about both of our journeys with sober curiosity and how that really came to be. We're also going to talk a little bit about gardening or weed, because we can actually say that word now that we're podcasting. Cannot say that on TikTok. You will get banned. So if you have never heard that terminology before, there's a lot of people on TikTok who call smoking weed gardening. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that and how we kind of got into that. And then we're also going to be talking a little bit about what it's like to run a business together as a married couple. So let's dive right on in. Okay. Hello, Zachary. Welcome to Simply Balanced.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for making room in your busy schedule.
Oh, you're welcome. I can always make room for you, dear.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too. Okay. Like I said, you guys all probably know and love Zach. He makes appearances on my TikTok all the time. But Zach and I have been together for 6 years in June. So we're coming up on that 6 year. That's our dating anniversary. Our married anniversary is October 1st. And we're going to be going on 2 years this upcoming October, which is absolutely insane. I feel like we just got engaged, but
nope. Got engaged like almost, well, it'd be 2.5-ish years ago.
I know, almost 3 years ago. It's absolutely insane because 2021, anybody else who's been like a millennial during the pandemic, like you went into the workforce starting in 2019 or 2020. I just like can't wrap my mind around the fact that like 2018 was 6 years ago. That doesn't compute in my brain. Like that doesn't feel right. Well, like we were talking about
earlier today, 2012 was 12 years ago.
I'm so old. I think I saw a picture the other day on Instagram that High School Musical came out like 18 years ago. And that absolutely terrifies me. Like that makes me feel so old.
2006-ish or whatever.
Oh, we're old, you guys, if you're a millennial like us.
Anyway, going back to our relationship, would you like me to tell the story of how we met and how we got to the point where we're at now?
You want to tell it or you want me to tell it?
I think I'll tell it.
Okay, I'll let you tell it.
And then you can chime in with any notes or corrections as you like.
Okay, go for it.
So we met back in middle school. Taylor transferred to my middle school in what, 6th grade?
Yeah, 6th grade.
I didn't really know you until 7th grade when we got put in the same Shakespeare group.
Zach and I were both in advanced reading, so we're both very well educated.
And since then, my reading has only gone downhill. We were in the same group, and I definitely like found you attractive back then, and like even
you found my when I used to wear eyeliner like all the way down to here. Thought that was attractive.
When I used to have bangs and comb my hair down.
That I gotta figure out how to do this. You can make like show notes. I wonder if I can find, there's a middle school picture of me, you, and Colton Ruprecht.
Yeah.
And you've got the bangs down to here, and I've got the like poof going on in the front with the eyeliner. Yeah. I gotta try to find that. I'll put it in the show notes if I can find it, and if not, I'll share it on my story.
But anyway, so we met doing that, and I definitely had a bit of a crush on you, and obviously we just got along really well, so I was like, oh, she's fun to talk to. But I also had like this other girl that I really liked who's, you'll tell that side of the story, who I had liked for a lot longer of a time, I guess. But then you came into the picture. I vividly remember going to a high school basketball game, and I sat by both of you guys, and I was like, oh, cool. It's like Hannah Montana, best of both worlds kind of thing. And I remember my dad was at that game, and he was like, "Oh, who's that like brunette girl that you were sitting by?" And I was like, "Oh, that's Taylor." And he's like, "Oh yeah, she's cute."
He told this story at our rehearsal dinner too. Like Fred remembers this story as well.
Yeah, he did. And I was like, "Yeah, she is pretty cute." But then ultimately, at the end of the day,
I got friend zoned.
I ended up friend zoning my future wife for another girl who I think I eventually dated for 2 weeks. But she's happily married now to actually another Zack. So like, it all worked out.
If she listens to this podcast, I'm going to die laughing.
And you know who you are, so shout out to you. Anyway, so that was middle school. So like,
can I tell the middle school dance story though, quick?
Sure, yeah. Hop in.
Because so the other thing of like when I knew I was friend zoned by Zack was in middle school. So we went to Catholic middle school, and we had middle school dances. I feel like we had those actually like kind of frequently.
It was once a month.
Was it once a month? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had middle school dances pretty frequently. And
that was like a big deal.
I was going to say, it was a really big deal because they only played like 2 or 3 slow songs the whole night. And so that's when you like knew who was talking to who in middle school, was like during that middle school dance period. And so I knew that like Zack was questioning me or this other girl. And so I was like, well, this is going to be the determining factor. Like, is he going to dance with me or is he going to dance with her? He did not dance with me. He danced with her. So that was the moment that I knew that I was friend zoned, but I played it cool and I just stuck it out in the friend zone, and look at where I ended up.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, going back to middle school, like honestly, after that, we did friend zone. Like we honestly became like best friends though.
No, yeah, we did.
Which actually was nice. And then like through middle school we were best friends, and then high school we were still best friends. And like before we started dating people in high school, I remember the night that Taylor like asked me to come over and watch a movie with her. We watched Crazy Stupid Love on her couch. I was terrified of her dad. me and her dad are homies now, so it's cool. But I like at that point in my life was so naive. This was freshman year of high school, so naive, and I was just like, "Oh, she just wants to hang out."
Yeah, no, I did not just want to hang out.
And like, I was like, "Oh, if I ever called that wrong."
Also, Zack left my house that night, and my mom said, "You're gonna marry him someday," and I just laughed at her because Zack had friend zoned me so hard at that point. I was
also,
like,
your mom gave me a ride home.
Yeah, she did.
My mom dropped me off. If your mom can pick me up and drive me home. That's what happened. Yep. Anyway, so we started dating other people in high school.
They did not like us being friends.
No, and rightfully so. But we made like this almost like little sex pact in high school.
Oh, we're going to tell this.
Yeah.
Mom, stop listening.
But that never happened because our significant others kind of...
Yes, it did. We made one for college.
No, I was saying we were thinking about breaking up with our significant others and like doing the dirty.
Zack. You're airing our dirty laundry out on the pod.
It doesn't matter.
Also, we, outside of like that high school pact, when we were in middle school, we made a pact to get married at 30 if both of us were single. Yeah, so we had multiple pacts.
There are pacts. There were multiple signs of like this was gonna happen eventually.
Yeah, there was a definite connection.
There were just other people that got in the way throughout the years, and especially in high school. I think towards after freshman year, we kind of drifted apart. Mm-hmm. Just because of the situations that we were in. But like I would still always text Taylor on her birthday, like tell her happy birthday. And like I went to her grad party. She came to my grad party. Like we were both on each other's grad party bulletin boards. So like we definitely still like had a very high like regard for each other.
Yeah.
I didn't like ever talk to you in college probably until like junior year. I ran into you drunkenly at like this big party at Iowa State, which is where Taylor went. Or it was a football game actually.
Yeah, I was talking to someone else at the time though.
Yeah, we were tailgating, and like I ran into you, and I was like, "Oh my god, like she was my best friend back in the day, and this is so cool. Like I'm hammered, she's hammered. Like what the fudge is up, you know?" Yeah. And so like we just like briefly talked, and I didn't really think anything of it. But I think later that junior year of college, she ended up being single. She knew she was friends with a couple of the girls that I was always around in Iowa City at the University of Iowa. And like, she just basically messaged me on Snapchat one day, was like, "Oh, hey, I know them. Like, that's so cool that you hang out with them."
Zack
like,
was also hammered when I Snapchat messaged him.
Yeah. But she's like, "I know them. I'm friends with them. That's cool that you hang out with them. Like, we should like reconnect sometime or like text me sometime, basically.
Yeah.
And so that was like on a Thursday or Friday night. And I remember Sunday night, I was just like having a little bit of Sunday scaries and like kind of lonely at like 11 or 12 at night. Like, you know how it is in college. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to text her and see what happens. So I shot her a text and to like reconnect, and we have not stopped texting since then.
And that text was, "Hey Tay, it's Zach. I don't know if you still have my number."
Yeah. Yeah, so we talked for a few months. She came and visited me in Iowa City multiple times, and at that point in my life, I was like, I don't really know if I want a girlfriend. But that changed pretty quickly after we started like hanging out a bunch, and a few months later, I asked her out, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, and I also want to preface by saying, like, Zach texted me on that Sunday night, and we didn't turn flirty for probably like a month. I feel like we were just
Disagree.
like text. It took a while for it to turn flirty.
Disagree.
And I was the one who initiated the flirtiness.
Yeah, you did, but
I did.
Disagree on how long it took.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like it took a long time.
No.
Okay, if you say so. And then, yeah, after I had visited Zach twice in Iowa City, I was kind of like, okay, so like what's going on here? Because I had previously gotten out of a relationship where like there was no commitment. And so I was like, what's the dealio here? Like, I'm ready to settle down basically at this point. And Zach's like, oh, I don't know. I don't really know if I want a girlfriend, like blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So this was in June. So like we had just both gotten home from like Iowa City and Ames. So like it was distance, but it wasn't that far. And so in my head, I was like, if this kid doesn't ask me to be his girlfriend by the end of summer, like once we go our respective ways back to Iowa City and Ames, I'm not like playing that game. Like I'm not doing the distance thing, and not doing the distance thing if we're not dating. Like I'm not going to make that effort because I've done that and it didn't work out in my favor. So like I'm not going down that road again. But it took 3 weeks for Zach to ask me to be his girlfriend. So he did have to have liquid courage to ask me to be his girlfriend too.
Yeah. No comment.
He was drunk in a Hy-Vee parking lot.
Getting Hy-Vee sushi.
And asked me to be his girlfriend.
Yeah. So that's the story of how we got together.
Yeah, and then we dated for 4 years? No, 3 years, 3.5 before we got engaged.
2018 to 2021. Yeah, about a little over 3 years.
Yeah, we got engaged in October of 2021, got married in October of 2022, and then obviously still together. So.
Yep. So that's our story.
Yep.
What else are we talking about today?
What else we're talking about today is our journeys with sober curiosity, because I get a lot of questions on this, like why we decided to go sober curious, what like our initial journeys with that were. And I feel like maybe I can kind of start because I feel like yours goes into something that happened more recently for you, at least.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of a backstory, but yeah, if you want to start.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of a backstory, but I want to give you that opportunity to share that.
Oh, I just got the notes notification that it updated.
Oh. And so just so people know, because I feel like when I also post this term on social media, sometimes people are like, what the hell does that mean? So sober curious just basically means that you're exploring your relationship with alcohol. And like, I wouldn't say that and I don't even think you really necessarily, like everybody gets hammered in college. And like both of us did our fair share of getting hammered in college, especially
me,
Zach's senior year.
More so, yeah.
Zach more so than me, but especially Zach graduated early. So like football season of both of our senior years, but like Zach was graduating in December. I mean, it was nonstop Thursday through Sunday.
Gotta go out with a bang.
It was awful. I don't know how my body and liver survived that time in my life. But outside of that, I feel like once we got out of college, Zach and I both were like, especially once we moved in together, we had just kind of started to like settle down a little bit. Neither of us really wanted to go like party all of the time, but I feel like a lot of our friends that we were really close with still did. And so we felt a lot of that like social pressure to continue going out. And then COVID happened. So that kind of like put a little pause on it, but I still feel like people were drinking like at their houses or at their apartments. And that was the first time a lot of our friends really had their own places. So I feel like we started like going to people's houses and drinking and different things like that on the weekends. But one thing that really started to resonate with both of us was that at that time we were both working 9 to 5 corporate America, and
still am. I am.
Zach is. I'm not anymore. But it's like you start to recognize that once you're out of college, like you don't get 3 days to recover from a hangover. It's like you get, 48 hours to yourself on the weekend. And I was starting to get to the point where, like, do I really want to spend the only 48 hours that I really have to myself, like, laid up in bed with a hangover feeling like garbage? And then we moved to Denver at the end of 2020, going into 2021. And I think that was like a really big shift for us because we knew no one moving to Denver. And I will say this all the time. That was the best decision we ever made. I'm so glad that we did that.
I will echo that statement.
As I say, Zach can elaborate on that from his perspective as well. But I think that we just started to meet so many different people with so many different perspectives on the world, on alcohol, on, weed, on all of these different things. And obviously, like, weed is legal in Colorado too. And Zach smoked prior to us moving to Colorado. Like, he was a lot more familiar with it. It was something that I was very scared of and had a very big, I'd say, stigma around. And I have, like, reasons for that. I don't need to dive into those on the pod. But, like, I had reasons for having a stigma around them. And I had never been exposed to it in a positive way, I guess, is kind of my thing about it. And as we started to talk to more people in Colorado who do it more frequently, I was like, this seems like something that I might actually like a lot more than drinking, because once we moved, it was just like we just weren't really going out anymore. Like, both of us were still getting drinks every now and then when we'd go out to dinner or to bars and stuff like that. But we weren't really getting drunk, and it wasn't really something that, like, we wanted to do either. And so I started dabbling with edibles a little bit, probably like 6 months to like 9 months after we started living, because I definitely didn't do it when we first moved there. And people ask me all the time. I get this question a lot on TikTok, but I can't really share it like I want to because I might get in trouble and get banned, and I don't want to do that. But I started taking like THC and CBD edibles 1-to-1 ratio, which means it's the same amount of milligrams of THC as it is CBD. And the reason that I like that is because how THC and CBD actually work is they ignite these things in your body called cannabinoids, which can help to just relax your nervous system.
Cannabinoids.
Cannabinoids. Did I say it wrong?
I to be honest, I don't know, but to me, I've always said cannabinoids.
Oh, well, we're probably both saying it wrong.
So it's just
let us know how you say it correctly. Yeah. But it ignites those in your body. And so the thing about THC is it can cause that psychoactive effect in your brain. And so I had smoked or taken edibles a couple times where I did have negative experiences. Like, I don't want to say that you're going to have a positive experience every single time you do it, but I think it's a matter of finding out what works well for you. And so when I tried out the CBD and THC, I noticed that, like, I just felt very relaxed and didn't get that psychoactive head high, which is what I was trying to avoid. And so I just felt a lot better doing that. And I started to do it a couple times a week just to kind of take the edge off, after a long day of work or whatever it was, because I was still working corporate when I lived in Colorado too. And I was starting to do TikTok on the side as well. But I think the biggest thing for me with this whole alcohol journey has just been that, and I've said this multiple times on like different podcasts and different TikToks and stuff, but there were two really big things that shifted my perspective on it. Number one was there's this influencer who I love. Her name's Cameron Rogers. And I listened to her episode on going sober. And she was like, every time I was around people who weren't drinking, I was jealous that they weren't drinking. But I have the conscious choice to choose not to drink. And that really resonated with me because I felt the same way. Every time I was around people who weren't drinking, I was like, I really don't want to be drinking right now, but I'm drinking because of societal pressure, because I want to loosen up, or because I want to have fun, or like whatever it is. But the reality is I can do all of those things without alcohol. It just took me a while to realize that I didn't need it in order to have fun in different settings and different scenarios.
Well, it's scary the first time you like actually make the choice to not drink at a social function where there's just a bunch of people drinking alcohol.
No, 100%. It's a very scary thing. And like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. Like, once you get to that point in the night where everybody's fucking hammered, it's kind of annoying. Like, I love all of you hammered people in my life, but like sometimes when you're sober and like it gets to 1 or 2 a.m. and everybody's like belligerent.
I've had Taylor come down to the basement. Well, none of my friends were belligerent, but I've had Taylor come down to our basement at 12 o'clock, exactly on the dot at midnight, and come, it's past my bedtime. I'm tired. Everybody out.
Hey, it's my house. I can do what I want.
Yeah. So
Rias and Dom, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sorry.
We love you guys.
They were literally drinking a 4 Loko in my basement at 27 years old, and I'm genuinely concerned about that still.
That's freaking baller.
I've also never had a Four Loko, so
that's something we need to unpack.
I'm not doing that. No fucking way.
Okay, how many, like, once we hit a certain amount of listeners on your podcast, like, let's say.
No, because I would be hungover and throw up. Like, it would not be good.
Okay,
I'll
if you guys
try a
want to
sip
see,
of one.
if you guys want to see Taylor drink like half a Four Loko, like, let us know. We'll make it happen. It'd be a lot of fun.
As I literally said, I'm going sober this year, so
It
that
would be
really
a lot of fun.
Zach likes when I get a little tipsy because I do tend to loosen up a little bit, but I feel like I do that with weed now too.
Yeah. It's just a different kind of loosening up.
Just a different kind of loosening up. But all of that to kind of say, I think it's very intimidating, the first time that you decide to go to a social gathering where you're choosing not to drink and everybody else is drinking. And that's why, but that Cameron Rogers like quote really did resonate with me. And then the second biggest thing for me was that I felt like I almost always regretted drinking like the next day, but I never regretted not drinking. Like there was never a time where I was like, oh, I would have had more fun if I was drunk. And I think too, a big perspective shift when we got to Colorado as well as recognizing that like, it also kind of depends on like who you're around and who you're spending time with and those different types of things too. Because I think that like, if you can have genuinely fun times and easy conversations with people, you don't necessarily need alcohol to like loosen the vibe and make it easier. And so I think we met so many people who have similar like thought processes and mindsets to us when we moved there. And so it just felt like really easy to hang out with a lot of people. And I also too just think like the Midwest is kind of boring. Like it's not a bad place to grow up.
Strictly your opinion.
That's strictly my opinion. I think it's a little bit boring. There's not as much to do. So I think that a lot of people drink because there's not as much to do. Like especially in the winter.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about the Des Moines area. Midwest, you're also including Kansas City, Chicago, Minneapolis, where there is a lot more stuff to do.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm specifically talking about Des Moines. Yeah. There's just not as much to do. And so I feel like a lot of people are just
And don't get me wrong, I love Des Moines, but we're talking Taylor's opinion.
Okay, I didn't say I didn't love Des Moines, but
What did you say last night?
Do I love Denver more? Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I do. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, continue.
But I just think all of that to say, like, I just started to realize it just wasn't really serving a purpose in my life in any way, shape, or form. And it wasn't really something I wanted in my life anymore either. And so sober curious, I think for me, instead of just like, why don't you just go sober? I think a lot of it has to do with my history with orthorexia as well. Like orthorexia is a very obsession-based behavior. And I never wanted alcohol or sobriety or sober curiosity to turn into something like that. I wanted to still have the freedom to make that choice if I want to have it. Like if I want a drink, I can have one. It's just that like I'm not removing that access or creating that restriction around it. It's more so that like I'm making that conscious choice every single time of like, do I really want to do this? Like, do I really want to drink? And so I think that's kind of like my story with sober curiosity, and I'll pass it off to Zach to tell his a little bit too. And then I want to dive into gardening like a little bit further, so like don't go into too much detail on it because I have some like actual questions I want to talk about.
I was kind of confused. I didn't know if you were going from sober curious straight into gardening with that story.
No, I just talked too much, but that's okay.
You like to word vomit a little bit.
I do. My brain goes in too many directions.
Anyone that follows you or listens to you probably knows that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but that's okay. We still love Tyler.
They're fine with that.
And I call her Tyler, by the way.
Yeah, it started off as like a sass thing, like when I was being sassy.
Now
He would call me Tyler. Now he just only calls me Tyler.
Yeah.
So if you guys hear him call me Tyler, like
it's out of love.
Yes.
It's out of love. It's like my nickname for her, and it's not like meant to.
I prefer Tay, but he never calls me Tay anymore.
Yeah, it's always Tyler.
Like how Travis calls Taylor Tay now.
Anyway, let's get into my story with.
Wait, I have to say something. I also told Zach this morning. What was the context of that? Where I put you on the map. What were we talking about?
I have no idea.
I don't remember the context, but this morning we were talking about
something. There was not a lot of context.
And I go, oh, I'm like Taylor. I put you on the map. And Zach was just like, okay.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so my journey with mine's more so sober curiosity, which I guess yours is too. But you're trying to also indulge in the full on sober thing.
Yeah, I really have no interest in drinking at this point anymore. New Year's Eve was not a good night for me.
My journey with sober curiosity, I would say, started kind of honestly towards the end of college, but more so like that first year post grad, when it's like, yeah, you are working a job and you only have a finite amount of time on the weekends to do what you want and get done what you need to do. I noticed kind of that, like I said, first year post grad, everyone still wanted to go out and like say, hey, what are we doing this weekend? Where are we going? What bar are we going to? Like Friday and Saturday, like let's keep drinking.
Yeah.
And lots of happy hours, all that kind of stuff, which when you work in like the corporate arena too is very common.
Yeah.
And I just got to the point where I found myself like looking at my calendar and being like, okay, in a couple weeks, we don't have any plans. Like none of my friends want to go out and drink. Like that's going to be nice to just have a chance to relax and like recover a little bit. I think another thing that was big for me too was just like, with a dietitian as a wife and listening to certain podcasts and reading information surrounding alcohol, that like my goals much more pertain to like my health and nutrition and like physique, like based in the gym and like
I think mental too.
Yeah, for sure mental, but I don't know if that was necessarily a priority for me at that time. But like I knew how it was affecting my workouts and like my nutrition and honestly your sleep too, just how it affects everything.
Everybody like thinks that it helps you sleep and it might help you fall asleep, but your quality of sleep, it's so bad.
Your recovery's terrible.
If you have an Oura ring, the nights that I drink, I kid you not, my like readiness and sleep scores are in the 50s.
Yeah, so that a lot of that really woke me up, and then also reading about how much longer it takes your body to recover even if you have like 1 or 2 drinks on the weekend, just like throughout the weekend. For me, honestly, as silly as it might sound, it's like if I have a drink on a weekend, I can feel it in my workouts the next week.
Yeah.
And it's that's just me.
It affects your muscle protein synthesis so much, which is the buildup of your muscle tissue, just so you know. So like if you work out in the morning and then you go drink, like it almost negates the workout in a way.
And some people genetically are blessed and built a little different.
Yeah, I'm not saying aesthetics wise.
No,
I'm saying like purely physiologically how
Yep.
it affects your muscle growth and development. Like you're going to be more sore, your muscle, because when you work out, you create teeny tiny tears in your muscle tissue. And in order for that muscle to repair and grow, it has to use protein, which breaks down into amino acids, and then it builds that protein tissue back up. And that's how it repairs, that's how it grows, and then I can't say that word. Hypertrophy.
That's the first time you've attempted it correctly the first time.
I know, I always say hypertrophy, which is so wrong. But that's how it actually happens. But your body, when you drink alcohol, prioritizes the metabolism of alcohol. So it doesn't prioritize all of these other functions when it comes to macronutrients like protein, carbohydrates, all of those different types of things. So that's why, like, if you are someone who exercises consistently and notice that your exercise is impacted or your soreness or all of those types of things, that's why.
Yeah, so that was a big like thing for me, was just like understanding how it affected like my workouts and my like physical health and nutrition, which is something I more so was interested in post college and tried to focus on more, and it interested me more than drinking. So kind of like what Taylor was saying though, like once we did get our own place, I noticed that we were like able to start saying no to like going out sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle for like, I mean, probably both of us is like, we are both kind of like people pleasers in some ways. And it's like, well, you don't want to tell your friends no, because then, well, what if they like start not inviting me to stuff? Or then what if they think that we don't want to hang out with them? And all these different thoughts, but it's like really you're just kind of setting boundaries for what you want. It's your life. You got to live it.
Yeah.
Which is something we slowly figured out, but we have figured out to this point. But then again, like Taylor was saying, we did move to Denver. I would have drinks occasionally, probably 1 or 2 with like, we'd always go out to a restaurant every weekend for dinner one of the nights. And I'd have like a different beer I'd want to try, which I still enjoy doing every once in a while. Or a cocktail or something. but we just weren't consistently around individuals or situations where it's like, hey, let's go out and party, let's go out and drink.
Yeah.
And that was really nice for us. And it kind of allowed us to take a step back and be like, oh, that's not what we want to do at all anyway. So that was nice. And like Taylor said, I much more prefer to garden anyway. So I think that might be a good. Oh, well, I guess I'll touch on another key point of my sober curiosity.
I didn't even get to it. Type 1 diabetes.
I didn't even get to it. So yeah, I found out I was a type 1 diabetic last June. So that
can you tell, or I can tell, depending on how comfortable you feel describing this, because I feel like people get type 1 and type 2 diabetes mixed up.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's too integral to the story.
No, but I think it's just a good thing to share.
I'll let you explain it because you scientifically explain it better than I do.
So there are 2 different types of diabetes. The most common one is type 2 diabetes, which comes from health and lifestyle choices. So it's reversible. You can shift your A1C and your blood sugar levels by exercising more or focusing on nutrient density in your diet if you're someone who's diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. So Zach's pancreas, which is the organ, not part of your body, but the organ that emits insulin, which helps to capture glucose or carbohydrates, put it where it needs to go within your cells. His pancreas basically just sputtered out and stopped working. So now his body is reliant on insulin in order for him to metabolize his food and actually utilize the glucose that's in his bloodstream. So that's kind of the differentiating factor between the two. But you found out in June.
I was a type 1 diabetic. And I think also another thing to touch on as far as sober curiosity goes is I think you want to have a plan around sober curiosity, which has really worked well for me, where it's because if you don't have a plan, you can get into any situation. Someone asks you to drink, you're more than likely going to feel the pressure to do it. It really helped me have boundaries and set a plan around sober curiosity when I decided to say, okay, hey, these are the typical and specific occasions I'm going to drink at. So for me, but this was before I had type 1 diabetes, I would only drink at bachelor parties, weddings, or specifically Iowa football games. And that was 90% of the time I would drink. Maybe there's another 10% of the time where there'd be these one-off occasions. I'd be yeah, I'll have a couple beverages. But I think most importantly, if you are looking into going sober curious or something like that, have a plan around it. That way you can set your boundaries and people know why you're not drinking, because I feel, at least in my experience, that people are more accepting in that kind of instance. But yes, got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in June, so that completely changed the way I approach alcohol. I barely drink anymore. I will drink at weddings. I'll have a few at bachelor parties still. I had a couple drinks at an Iowa football game this year, but we're talking, the max I have is maybe 4 or 5 beverages.
And that's because alcohol drops his blood sugar.
Alcohol drops my blood sugar, and it's just hard to manage. So I just don't even want to bother with it. And when I'm talking, I have 4 or 5 beverages. That's probably spread out over the course of 4 hours. So that's another thing for me is I can't be pounding them. I'm slowly enjoying them and drinking them.
You basically can't get drunk or hammered anymore. It's more so just tipsy.
I could, but I'm not even going to play that game.
It's risky to do so.
But I am interested in talking to certain type 1 diabetics that have found a balance with drinking, because we know of a certain individual that has kind of figured that out. But I'm just curious, not that I want to do it. But anyway, that's kind of my journey with sober curiosity, and it's obviously changed very recently as well. So yeah, I guess we can probably start talking about gardening and what we really enjoy doing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned that I kind of got into gardening in Colorado, and Zach had already done it previously. I will say that my preferred form of gardening is garden gummies, so edibles. I like the brand Wana or Wild. If you have access to a legit dispensary, those are by far my favorite too. If all you have access to is a Delta 9, which is basically THC, but it's one molecule off, so it's still going to give you a lot of the same effects. It's just not the same exact thing. So that's pretty much, I would say you can find Delta 9 in pretty much any state at this point.
Well, you can find it online.
You can find it online. You can find it all over the place. But when you have access to a true dispensary, so like when we lived in Colorado, Wana and Wild being my top pick for sure, was by far my favorite. I always did 1-to-1, 5 milligrams, very low. And I would say that's a big thing when it comes to gardening, is that taking it low and slow is
Agreed.
Don't make the mistake that I made the first time I took an edible, which was I took half of one, and an hour later I was like, oh, I don't feel it. Took the other half. Not good. Not good.
Yeah, don't get too ambitious.
No, don't get too ambitious. Don't start with too high of a milligram, which that's actually a listener question, so we won't dive too much deeper into that.
We'll revisit that.
I think that another thing that a lot of people don't know is there's like different strains of THC. So there's sativa and then there's indica. So sativa
and
is
hybrid.
Hybrid. So sativa is going to be more of like a head high. Some people say it makes them more like cerebral, focused. It's more so given me a lot of anxiety when I've tried it. I think
there are a lot of people that don't like sativa for that reason.
I think that sativa can either get you really into your head in a positive way or really into your head in a negative way.
Yeah, we're indica people.
We're indica or hybrid people. Hybrid is a mixture of sativa and indica.
Which actually works well for me.
I don't mind hybrid. I don't like to smoke at all. I just don't like the inhalation on my lungs. I've listened to Andrew Huberman's podcast on weed because I want to feel very educated on it and understand like what I'm putting into my body.
Also, shout out Huberman. Great resource if you're ever looking for different substances to like do some research on.
But yeah, I mean, just listening to his podcast and how damaging it is to your lung cells.
Not to keep interrupting, go listen to his on alcohol, and that will really change your perspective.
That shifted my perspective so much.
So when we
were
talking about the research and the information surrounding it, that really also changed my outlook on it. Anyway, back to gardening.
Yeah, I think he does also a very great job of being objective when he talks about substances too. Like he will give you the positive and negatives of like he'll tell you the negatives around weed too. Like we're not coming on here saying that like
there's nothing wrong with
there's nothing wrong with weed, because there definitely is things wrong with weed too. But it's like
just like anything in life.
But then you hear alcohol and it's like there's not one singular benefit to alcohol versus weed can have some benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And so back to like the different types. So then there's the hybrid, which is the two mixed together. Then there's indica, which you might hear as like indicouch, which it definitely does relax you. It makes you a little bit sleepy. But I've said this to Zach before. It's like if I take indica and then I am indicouch, like I'm sitting on the couch, that's when I get like really sleepy and really tired. But if I'm like up and moving with indica, like I'm okay.
So yeah, to kind of tell my side of the story with indica is like, I actually very much enjoy working out. Like
which is so weird.
Like, but that's kind of what you're saying is like, yes, if I put myself in a position where I can be lazy, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But if I put myself in a situation where I need to do something, like cleaning, love cleaning.
Zach loves gardening and cleaning.
Yeah. I actually like enjoy doing it. And then running is also another big one for me. It makes running much more enjoyable. Working out, honestly, just little like tasks around the house and that kind of stuff, like playing video games. Yeah, it makes those things kind of like a little more like, it adds another like kind of like layer to it.
I like two things more when I'm high.
Food.
I'm not going to say the second one on the pod.
I'm telling you guys, I think we should say it because if you haven't done it, you are just missing out.
Let's do this. It makes intimacy.
Yes, there you go.
Incredible. We'll put it that way.
And
Mom, stop listening. Again.
It like, especially compared to drunk intimacy.
Oh my God, drunk intimacy.
Night and day.
So bad.
Night and day.
So bad.
Night and day. Like one's the devil and one's God, basically.
If you've never tried it for that reason,
dude,
highly recommend.
It is mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's pretty crazy.
And food does taste better. And I will say, like, I just want to touch on that part a little bit, being a dietitian and someone who struggled with an eating disorder, because I get that question a lot with like the munchies.
Yeah.
I think a big thing for me, and I actually wanted to touch on this too, but I don't want to talk for like way too long. But I think for me, alcohol.
Hey, it's your cast. Your podcast. We can talk as long as we want.
I think alcohol for me specifically became something of almost an outlet, especially when you and I first started dating, because that was kind of the first time I was really exploring a healthy relationship with food, because I was also in like a healthy relationship as well. And I turned to alcohol to lower my inhibitions and eat. And because I had so many restrictions and rules around food and what I was allowed to have, and I was definitely under consuming and under eating, that then when I drank alcohol, my brain, because like I said, those inhibitions were lowered, I gave myself that permission to eat foods that I often wouldn't eat. So like pizza. I mean, we ate so much pizza. Junk. We ate so much. Sorry.
Shout out Falbo's in Iowa City one time.
I shouldn't say junk. That's not a good way to put it. We ate a lot of very non-nutrient dense foods. And I say it in that way because I wasn't really taking care of my body in any way, shape, or form, because I was under eating nutrient dense foods. I was over exercising, and then I was compensating with alcohol and then eating. And I think that's another really big part of my sober curiosity journey as well, is once I made that connection that it was such kind of a binge trigger, quote unquote, that wasn't a healthy relationship for me either. So like being able to understand that in myself was also something that was huge for me, versus when I garden, I'm coherent. Like I think people who have never gardened before, you don't know the sensation, which like,
well, and to feed into that, like I love your mother. I love my mother-in-law. Shout out Angie. You're a hell of an individual. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. But to the point about perception is like our parents grew up in the propaganda of all these negative things about weed.
Yeah.
That just simply weren't true.
100%.
And so the perception thing comes back to just the misinformation that's just been spread about the actual drug. And I mean, that's what it is. It is a drug.
Yeah.
But people also don't realize alcohol is a drug.
Yeah.
But I think people have a hard time understanding that, like, there's all these stereotypes, like, oh, you get the munchies, you get lazy, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, if you're going to be that way no matter what, weed is going to not enhance that or change your personality. Like, if
alcohol
you're going to be,
can literally change your personality.
If you're going to be lazy and eat a bag of potato chips on the couch, you're going to do that with or without weed, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, that's just who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are lazy individuals. There are lazy individuals that smoke weed. They're productive individuals. They're productive individuals that smoke weed. That's just how it is. So I think it just gets a bad rap and a misperception sometimes just because of the misinformation stereotypes that we've all grown up with.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, when I say that I'm coherent when I smoke, like it's really hard to describe if you've never experienced it. It's just like a sense of euphoria. Like you just feel like lighter. And like for me specifically, I got diagnosed with ADHD this year, which I'm going to do a whole pod episode on that because I think it's really important to talk about. But my brain goes 100 miles an hour all the damn time. And you can ask Zach this, it's fucking hard for me to just sit. I can't sit and just like watch a movie, watch a show, wind down, enjoy myself.
You guys, I don't think we've ever finished a whole movie as a couple.
It took us 4 nights to watch Benjamin Button. So like for me, weed just quiets that. Like it quiets my brain, it calms me down, it allows me to just like relax and actually like spend time, I think too with Zach, where like I don't feel that sense of I need to be doing something all the time. It actually like, I mean, I will say like it decreases my productivity, but like I need that. Like I need my productivity to be decreased sometimes. And that's also the strain and the purpose that I'm taking it for. I think a big thing with weed versus alcohol is because alcohol lowers your inhibitions and weed doesn't. If you go into taking weed with a mindset of like what you want out of the experience, I think that makes a big difference too. Like when I first started and I did have a lot of those like more anxiety induced, they're not trips, but like anxiety induced sessions, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, we call them sesh.
Session, yeah, a weed sesh.
You want a sesh?
Yeah.
That's what we do in college.
When I would do that in the beginning, I think because I was so nervous about weed and I didn't understand it, I went into it with that anxious mindset. How am I going to feel?
I mean, same thing with alcohol. You need to have the right mindset. If you go in as an grumpy asshole and drink a bunch, you're just going to get rage filled and do some stupid shit.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I also like, you are not like a rage person, and the only time I've ever seen you angry, not with me, by the way, guys. Well, he was angry about me because someone hit me with a beer bottle and then he wanted to go stomp on their faces because I had to go get 18 stitches. But that's like the only time I've ever seen you angry.
Yeah, well, that's what I was telling you the other day. The only time I've ever gotten close to being in fights is with alcohol. Exactly.
And so like what I'm saying about, I think there's a certain point with alcohol where you can't control your emotions or your feelings. Weed, I feel like you can.
Yeah.
A little bit more because you are still coherent.
100%. Yeah, as long as you're not getting baked out of your mind.
Yeah, Zach's done that before and it scared the shit out of me.
Kind of fun to do every once in a while.
No, I've never done that. I don't like it.
It's nice. It's kind of, honestly, sometimes it's a bit of a reality check because it makes you think about your life. You're like, shit, I need to get this area of my life together a little bit more.
Okay.
It can be used as a tool, 100%. Yeah.
But we went off on a tangent now. All of this to say, we started with the munchies was where I was going with that. I used alcohol as an outlet to eat. With weed, because I'm more coherent, I'm still able to be mindful. Do I sometimes eat a little bit more when I'm high? Yeah, I do. Like, I'll have a little bit extra dessert or I'll have a little bit of an extra snack. But like, honestly, what's weird about weed is, to me, the two things that taste the best are sweets and fruit. Like, I like dessert.
Fruit when you're high.
But fruit is
fire.
So good. Like strawberries, bananas, pineapples. I think it's also like you get dry mouth. So like anything that's like juicy tastes really good.
Sure.
So it's like, what I try to do is still create like a balanced atmosphere around it. Like,
so I think, not to cut you off, finish your thought.
What I just mean is like, I try to create a balanced atmosphere around it as to like, I don't feel like I get the munchies necessarily because I'm not restricting myself in any way, shape, or form. I'm eating what tastes good to me and recognizing that like weed is probably impacting my hunger levels and that I'm probably not actually hungry. So once I've satisfied whatever craving I'm having, like usually I'll have a cookie and fruit. Like that's kind of my go-to when I'm high. And it's like, once I have that, I don't really need anything else. And if I do, then I just try to choose something that's more nutrient dense. And that helps because it keeps you more full and satisfied. If you're reaching for things that aren't very nutrient dense, like chips or pizza, those things aren't bad, but they aren't going to fulfill you and they aren't going to get you satisfied. And so I think like creating that balance and mindfulness is so much easier for me when I'm high versus when I'm drunk.
100%.
So I think that's where like for me too, when
I've never come home from the bars and be like, oh, let me whip up something healthy.
No, it's pizza, chips and salsa.
Nutrient dense.
It's pizza, like chips and salsa.
Yeah.
I fucking love chips when I'm
burrito.
High. Or drunk, sorry. What?
Burrito.
Burritos? When do you make burritos?
No, don't make them, you buy them.
Oh, from Abelardo's?
Abelardo's in Iowa City specifically. Before it was Estella's, it was the small little jaunt in the building we lived in called Mommy's, and that was before anyone really discovered this place. And oh my God, their burritos are good. If you've ever been to Iowa City, live in Iowa City, went to Iowa within the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, like you know what I'm talking about.
Okay, if you say so. But yeah, I think that like that's a big question that I get asked a lot as someone who struggled with an eating disorder was like, how now do you kind of navigate that? And I think also like that also comes from me creating a healthy relationship with food. Like there are definitely still times where I struggle.
That doesn't really have anything to do with weed, in my opinion.
No, but people who have like, I have plenty of followers who have eating disorders and are scared of weed because of that munchies perception.
I see.
Like they're just like, I'm scared that that's gonna, especially if you've struggled with binging or overeating, that munchies, because the way munchies are described or shown in media is like you eat everything in sight and can't stop. But I don't feel like it's that way.
Yeah, you'll be hungry, but it's like, okay, well, let's be like what you talk about all the time. Let's have what I want, but add what I need.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah. But what I'm trying to say about the difference between weed and alcohol is that with alcohol, because my inhibitions are so lowered and I don't feel like I'm in a good headspace, that's where then I let a lot of that slip, and then I do feel really bad the next morning versus like when I'm smoking or high, because I'm still like coherent and I know what's going on, I'm still able to be mindful. When I'm drunk, I don't have that mindfulness aspect, at least for me as a person. Like maybe there are people who can navigate that better.
If you're mindful coming home from a drunk evening, like kudos to you.
Because I could never.
No.
Never in a million years.
Also, kudos to you if you're being mindful while you're high. That's also still very impressive.
That's me.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've also just created that environment for myself because of my...
Sure, it probably takes a little practice and work, right?
Yeah.
You got to work through it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think, too, what I was saying, where you were like, this has nothing to do with weed, for someone who has struggled with an eating disorder or binge eating, I think it does, because like you're saying, I think that if I didn't have a positive relationship with food, and if I hadn't worked on that before I started smoking, I probably would still use it as an outlet to binge. Sure. So I think
you got to work on it ahead of time.
Yes. Yeah. Like you have to work on it ahead of time and understand triggers, mindfulness, all of those different types of things. If you're someone who's dealt with that, Zach has the most positive relationship with food anyone has ever had in their entire lives. So like he doesn't always understand how my brain works around those things.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to talk about my journey with gardening?
Oh, yeah. I thought we already did that.
Nope.
Okay. Nope. Go ahead.
Anyway, so my gardening journey, I would say the first time I smoked weed was probably when I was 16, on some railroad tracks with some friends. I didn't know how to actually inhale, so I didn't get high.
That's another thing too, though. A lot of the times you don't get high the first time.
Good point. Yeah. First, there's a lot of people the first few times it never happens, and I've talked to and heard from many people that are like, oh, I've done it like a handful of times and nothing's ever happened. So
I don't think I did for the first time until I had tried it like 3 times.
Well, and that's the thing. And people are just like, at that point, they're just like, I don't have any interest in doing it because I've never felt anything from it. So it's like, yeah, fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did it first time when I was 16. When I really started to kind of pick up was when I was 18. In my senior year of high school, was going through some shit. Trying to figure out who I was post sports, basically, and like also my like high school sweetheart, quote unquote, had broken up with me, and like I was just mentally not in a good place. So like I used that as a way to kind of like help, I guess, and probably didn't use it in the best way possible. But yeah, throughout college, I much more preferred to do that than go out and drink. Not to say that I didn't love drinking in college, because I mean, that's a big part of the college experience.
Zach loved drinking in college.
I did love drinking in college, but I still always had a preference to the cannabis. And then post college, my cannabis experience, living at home really with your parents, 1 or 2 years after school kind of limits your ability to do that. So like, honestly, like wasn't doing it a whole bunch like the first 2 years post grad, just because like I'm obviously not going to bring weed into my parents' house probably, and like living in Iowa, it's like you don't have access to like edibles really.
Yeah.
At that time you didn't.
Yeah.
So like once we moved to Colorado, like obviously I had access to it and continued to do it. I've more so within the past few years have limited myself to trying to do it 4 to 5 times a week as opposed to doing it every night, which I was doing, just because of kind of like the Huberman podcast, like we were talking about, and just realizing that I need to also make sure I'm not just smoking, but also taking edibles to work on my lungs.
Yep.
I would say I prefer to smoke it just because I love the whole ritual of like, you know, you take the weed, you grind it up, you roll a joint. Like it's very soothing and relaxing and ritualistic for me, and I just very much enjoy that. I also love just putting on some good music, ripping a joint by yourself or with friends, doing whatever. That whole part of the process is just as relaxing to me as actually being high, if that makes sense. So that's what I really enjoy. Like Taylor said, we're indica hybrid people. I will, if you hand me a sativa joint, I'm gonna smoke it. But that's really what I enjoy. And let's see. I dabble more in the munchies than Taylor does, but like we kind of said, it's like I have ice cream or a cookie, but I also have like a protein shake because like I still try to hit my goals, and I think life's all about balance. Like I think you can't have both.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with weed, and like I said, I like doing random little tasks. with it. Makes it a little more enjoyable. Anything else in the gardening arena that we haven't really touched on?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We can go into there's a listener question about it, so we can talk about that once we get there.
All right. Well, I think the next topic is talking about running a business together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you guys who follow me, I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you probably follow me on social media, but if you do, you probably know that Zach and I have recently launched a business together. So we're starting a canned adaptogenic mocktail business. Adaptogenic means adaptogenic mushrooms. So it is not psilocybin. It's not going to get you high. It doesn't taste like mushrooms. They are just functional ingredients that can benefit your body in a multitude of ways. So immunity, stress response, decrease fatigue, improve, all recovery, all sorts of different things. And a lot of this really came out of the fact of Zach and I's sober curiosity journey and not having access to a mocktail that's exciting and or that tastes good and or one that benefits our body in any way, shape, or form. Kind of our little mantra with Pesce is that most NA beverages are no booze, no buzz, and no benefit. Pesce is no booze, all buzz, and benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just listening.
And so, yeah, it's definitely been a journey. I feel like Zach and I, though, communicate very well.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
What's the easiest / favorite part of running a business together? Easiest / favorite part?
Easiest / favorite part is that I get to do something I love with my best friend.
Yeah, it's like we are a team for everything in life, and so we do everything together, and this is just adding one more layer to it.
Yeah, and I think it's super fun to have a shared passion with someone, someone who's equally as excited about a project as you are, because I think that's something I struggle with my business, with Simply Healthy, because I'm solo dolo. Everything you guys see is me, and I work way too fucking much. That's something that I'm working on in therapy. That's something I'm working on with myself. I work way too much, and I think what I miss a lot about corporate America is collaboration. And so
what a buzzword.
I know, but it's true though. And people who are in corporate America are probably shut up.
To be fair, your corporate job, you guys did collaborate.
Yes.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. My old corporate job, we did collaborate a lot. And so running a business by yourself can be very isolating.
Yeah. And I think just to speak from my perspective too, it's I love my coworkers, and going into work and talking to them is enjoyable. Is an enjoyable part of my job. But I work in insurance. For those who don't know, you'll never hear someone say, I love insurance. It's really, really fun to run a business with your partner.
That guy in Italy said, I love insurance. Do you remember that? That frat bro that we met when we were driving back.
Oh, and
yeah. And we were I work through insurance. He goes, dude, I love insurance.
Yeah,
and we were
I was no, you
don't.
But it's really fun to run a business and be yeah, I like doing this. Are there struggles and difficult parts of it? Yes. But that's also the fun part of it, is pursuing something you actually like.
Yeah. I feel like we should have started with this question and ended with this question, but what's the hardest part of running a business together?
The hardest part of running a business together?
I want to hear from your perspective first, because
sure
I think I know the answer.
I'm sure you do. So obviously, if you have any familiarity with Taylor's TikTok page or podcast, whatever, she's a boss-ass bitch. She is a very, very hard worker, but she likes to... The hardest part is she likes to take control of everything.
Yeah.
She sucks at delegating, and she knows that.
That's why I don't have anyone to work for me. That's why I work for myself. That's why I haven't hired anyone for Simply Healthy.
She wants to be in control of everything, which you know what? That's who I married. I accept that. But I also I check her. I tell her, hey, you need to delegate these things. Because she's already overworked the way it is, she was saying. So she just tries to add more and more to her plate. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges is as far as that goes, you just need to learn to delegate more. And that.
I think it's our opposing personalities. In a sense, Zach is very passive and very easygoing.
Yep.
So it makes it easy for me to kind of be a boss, quote unquote, because Zach, I don't want to make you sound bad, but Zach will kind of just do what I say sometimes. So I feel you've gotten a lot better about checking me and being more honest with me in those situations. But I think because of our opposing personalities, it does sometimes make it difficult in the sense that I will overwork myself, which is my problem. But then I will sometimes take it out on Zach when I'm frustrated or overwhelmed because I didn't delegate. And I recognize that that's a me problem. But I would say that that's like my biggest challenge is letting go so that I can have that brain space to not get overwhelmed. But I think that it's easy for me to take control because you are more passive. So that's where like we're trying to find that balance between the two of us of me being less boss ass bitch and Zach being more boss ass bitch.
I would agree. Yeah, I think another thing too that like, not that this is hard, but like kind of that dynamic is like we have to recognize we're partners, not like boss and employee kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, honestly, that's really been the only like hard part I think we've faced so far with it between ourselves. Yes.
Yeah. No, my therapist.
I mean, you're gonna get struggles with any business that you start.
That's what my therapist asked me last week. She was like, "What are you gonna do when like a conflict arises in your business?" And I was like, "Zach and I just know how to fight well." Like as weird as that sounds, Zach and I don't fight very often. But and this is a listener question, so we can just do you have anything else you want to talk about, like with the business side of things?
No, I think listener questions are kind of ready to be answered.
Yeah, so and I feel like it goes into one of these listener questions, so we'll just start with that one. But like, how do we deal with conflict in life and in business as a couple? And I think that we don't fight a lot. I would say we bicker sometimes, and specifically when I'm in my luteal phase. More so than not, because the girlies who know that like, Zach, I love you so much, but sometimes your breathing pisses me off when I'm in my luteal phase, and that's not your fault. That's my fault. And so, oh no, it's his chomping gum. That's what drives me nuts.
Yeah,
when I'm in my luteal phase.
What are you talking about?
But like all that to say that we just don't fight very often, and I think a lot of that has to do with I'm a very emotional person, and Zach is I don't know how to like describe the way that you handle conflict, but I like to hash everything out right in the moment. I'm like very right then, forward, emotional. Zach is more so I want to take a break. And
I would describe myself as, at least I like to think that I'm objective, level-headed, and patient, I guess.
I think we've maybe been in 2 big fights in our relationship, maybe.
I mean, I'm thinking of one that was like literally probably 5 years ago.
I was going to say, I can think of like 2.
Yeah.
There was one in Denver that I can remember. But other than that, I only remember like one from college. So like both of those times, I think what I've had to learn as a person is that a lot of the times things do go better if we each take a step back. Like if things get heated in any way, shape, or form, or either of us are emotional.
Right.
Because I wouldn't say it gets heated. We don't yell at each other.
We don't. But I think one thing that I've tried to like at least not educate Taylor on, but just like bring to light is like I think things go a lot better when you can take your emotions out of it.
But I think you've done a good job of like when we are in an argument, because I'm a person who needs reassurance. I ask Zach 10 times a day if he loves me and why he loves me. And so I think that...
And I could hear it maybe once a month and be totally secure.
I think that, which comes from trauma, but for me. But I think that a big thing that you've done is that, yes, now we take that step back to like let our emotions settle. But like if we are in a fight before we take that step back from each other, you will like tell me, hey, I love you, but I just need to like let my emotions settle before we have this conversation. So you give me that reassurance to know that like you're not gonna, which I know you're not gonna leave me, but like I still need the reassurance. And so I think we've done a good job of meeting each other in the middle, of recognizing what the other one needs, and then allowing that space and time for us to come back to the conversation when emotions are a little bit less.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to handle conflict.
My
in life and business.
Yeah, my advice to anyone, just in life and business in general, and you can take it for what it's worth, but just like your emotions are gonna ruin the situation 10 times out of 10. Like take a minute, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, take a day or two to take your emotions out of whatever situation you've gotten into or found yourself a part of. Try to look at it as objectively as possible and have an adult conversation.
But I think, too, from a woman's perspective, women are more emotional.
Yeah,
like, I don't want to put that blanket statement because I'm sure there are women out there who aren't.
What I'm saying is it's not easy to do.
No, but that's what I just want to make that clarification that, like, this was something that took years in the making for me to be able to do.
Yes.
Like, I did not do well at this, I would say, until probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
Just like anything in life, you got to work on it.
So I think that's probably the best way that would be our best.
Just open lines of communication. I'll let you answer the question on mocktails.
So how do you order mocktails when you're out and what to order?
Yeah.
So by the way, we're going through all the listener questions right now. So when we go out, this is something that we're trying to actually change with Peche, because I think something that frustrates us is when we do go out, there's not a lot to choose from when it comes to like mocktail options. It kind of depends on where you're at. I feel like if you're on the West Coast, you do have a lot of restaurants who are a little bit more, I don't know if like hip and trendy is the right word, but they have a lot more options to choose from. So what I'll try to do is like, honestly, I'll ask the bar, like my waitress. I'll just be like, "Hey, do you have any options for mocktails? Can you make any of your cocktails a mocktail option?"
You're saying if there's no mocktail.
If there's no mocktail on the menu, yes. And if they can't, like, fine, that no worries. And basically, what I'll say is like, "Hey, I want a mocktail that's like citrusy and fruity. Like, can you make me something like that? Like, have kind of a flavor profile in mind. Like, what do you typically like in a cocktail?" And then I just ask them for that.
Or like, not to interject, but
no, go ahead.
Just if they have a cocktail menu, be like, "Hey, can you make this without alcohol?"
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's the best way. And our go-to, if they don't have anything that trips our trigger with like a mocktail or an NA menu of any sort, is just sparkling water with lime. It's kind of boring, but they usually bring it to you in a wine glass, which is kind of fun. And it still makes you feel like you're getting a fun drink. But that's kind of one of the goals with Peche too, is to create a more inclusive and fun environment with a drink that still gives you a buzz and a benefit and isn't just like sparkling water or an NA beer or an NA wine. So that's like something that we're kind of trying to do when it comes to our business as well.
Absolutely. Now, Taylor, let me ask you another viewer question for you.
Yeah.
Is it possible to be sober if your partner or spouse is not sober?
I think so.
And why is that?
Because I think that's kind of us a little bit.
Yep, 100%.
You like to drink more than I do. Like if we're looking at it objectively.
Yeah, it's still not a lot, but yes.
Yeah, still not a lot, but you like to drink more than I do. I will say that this is completely different, but like Zach's diabetes makes me nervous with his drinking. So I feel like that's something that's a little bit more complicated between the two of us.
Yeah, we have a different dynamic in that regard.
Yeah, but I think for the average individual, it's just about having an open conversation about it. Like if you're someone who doesn't want to drink, but your spouse or partner does, like have that conversation. Just be like, "Hey, I don't really feel like alcohol is serving a whole lot of purpose in my life anymore, but like you can totally drink and be respectful of that." And if they're, if your spouse or partner is to the point where they're like getting belligerent or hammered every single time you guys go out, then that's also a conversation I would have. Be like,
if it bothers you.
If it bothers you. Yeah. If you don't care, let them do them. But like, I think it's just a matter of having open communication back and forth about that and like what you feel, because I think that, this is something that I struggle with too, that, and Zach will attest to this, like, if Zach's not eating dessert, I can't eat dessert. Or like if Zach's not drinking, like I shouldn't be drinking. Or
if
like
I'm not gardening, I can't garden.
Yeah, like I have a really hard time with that. And so I 100% understand like where this person is probably coming from. But I think it's just a matter of recognizing what's most beneficial for you in that moment and then having open communication with your spouse or partner about it.
Yeah, and if that's not a possibility for you to be in a relationship with that person and you're wanting to maybe dabble in sober curiosity or become sober, that should tell you all you need to know.
Might be not the person for you.
Yep. All right.
So responses to people who have an opinion about you choosing not to drink. How do we answer this?
So having an opinion as I'm assuming a negative opinion.
Probably, yes. Beer bullying.
Yeah, we've both kind of run into this. More so, I would say a few years ago. So at a quote unquote younger age.
That's what I was about to say.
And people don't really understand it because that's all you've known the past 4 or 5 years in college. And it's just the norm. And that's what it is in America. It's the norm.
Yeah.
Like, that's great quote from Bill Maher on it. Alcohol is the only drug that if you choose not to do it, people assume you have a problem.
And I think a big thing here too for us is like a lot of our friends now just don't care as we've gotten older.
Well, they also realize as they've gotten older, like, yeah, I understand why you don't drink as much, because you start to feel it.
You start to feel it so much more. The hangovers are so much worse. And I would say that when we were younger, dealing with like the peer pressure and the beer bullying was a lot harder. Like, it was definitely something that took more of a toll on us.
It's tough.
But I think too, one, they're like, people are young. And like, when you're young, you prioritize different things.
Yeah.
And then two, I think as well, like, it can kind of go back to what we just said about that relationship thing. Like, if you have friends who are, after you've expressed your feelings or emotions about like why you choose not to drink, like having that open line of communication, or why you're choosing to drink less, whatever that looks like for you, and they're still kind of being dicks about it, then maybe they're not a great group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that sucks and that's hard. I'm going to do an episode on this later in the year with one of my best friends, Kate, about like relationships in your 20s when it comes to friendships. But I think like finding friends who have, and that's not to say you need friends who are sober or sober curious if you're choosing to go that route, but friends who support you in that, regardless
and
of what their
at the very
drinking
least,
habits
accept it.
Accept it, yes. And don't pressure and bully you. And like I said, I think that's a lot harder when you're younger. But I think as you get older, it's starting to like recognize that.
Yeah, and I think if they're going to be kind of judgmental, oh, you're choosing not to drink, you think you're better than us. It's like, why are you choosing to put just a straight toxin into your body at mass amounts?
Yeah, exactly.
So it just, you can go judgy from both ways.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, it's your life. You only have one life to live. Do what you want to do.
Yep. As hard as that is.
As it is. I'm not going to like.
If you're under 25 and your frontal lobe has not developed, it's going to feel a lot harder too.
Yeah. And
there's like a
I'm
shift.
not going to say, I'm not going to say it's easy to do this, because it's not.
No, it's not. It's hard.
Because it's very taboo for a lot of people.
And it's very normalized to drink.
Yes.
And then the last listener question is, how do you start gardening if it feels intimidating? I feel like we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but...
Well, we've given just a brief overview of the different types, but like, if you really want to get into it, how do you do that?
I would say go low and slow. So like I said, it's hard because like, to me, edibles feel like the safest route to start with, because you can... this is why I like edibles, because I'm a control freak. And with an edible, I know exactly the dosage that I'm getting when I take an edible, versus when you're smoking, it's a little bit harder to gauge how much you're actually getting. You have to learn to inhale properly to actually feel high. So I feel like edibles are a really easy place to start. And they're a place that feels like you have a little bit more control over the amount that you're getting.
Always start with half an edible.
Always start with half an edible. Even 5, if you get 5 milligrams.
Always start with half.
Always start with half. If you haven't felt anything within, what would you say, 2 hours, probably?
Yeah. I mean, even then, like...
maybe just wait and try it another night.
Yep. That's what I would say. You don't want to overwhelm yourself the first time.
No, you don't want to overwhelm yourself the first time. And the second thing that I would do with like starting gardening is do it with someone who has experience doing it.
Do that. Make sure you're in the right setting.
And make sure you're in the right setting. And by that, I mean a comfortable setting with people you trust and people you're comfortable with.
Don't if it's your first time doing it, don't go to a party and do it.
No, do not go to a party.
Don't go to a social function and do it.
And don't do it with like a bunch of people that you're not comfortable with just because you're feeling pressured to do it.
Right.
I think that doing it with just Zach for the first couple of times was very helpful for me, because like I said, there have been a couple of times where it's caused me to have like anxiety attacks. Mm-hmm. And so like having Zach be able to talk to me as someone that I trust and someone that I love and be like, it's okay, you're okay, it's going to go away, like it's not going to last forever type of thing is very helpful.
Well, I think it's also important that people understand that you would have to consume literally an enormous physically unconsumable amount of weed for you to overdose and die.
Yeah, like I think that too, like I said, start low and slow. Like that's just my best recommendation. And I think that edibles are a safe route to start with. And once you start to feel comfortable with those, you can dabble in smoking if that's something that you're interested in. Like I said, I prefer drinks, edibles, all of those types of things a lot more. And I think too, if you would rather smoke, that's something where you should really do it with someone who's experienced.
And I can talk to the smoking part a little bit. And just to clarify, when I'm talking about overdosing on weed, basically physically impossible. No one in history has ever died from ODing on weed. So it's a very, very safe option. So that's not something you need to worry about either. So that's very helpful. Smoking wise, again, kind of like Taylor was saying with edibles, I would say low and slow. So if someone's passing a joint around a circle of people you're comfortable with, or if you're going back and forth with your partner or a friend or a couple of friends, whatever it is, take a slow 2-3 second puff, pass it around. Now, if it's your first time, maybe let that sit, let it marinate a little bit. Maybe skip your turn in the rotation. Maybe go every other to try to get a good feel of where you're at. Because smoking is, you have to feel it out.
Yeah.
You don't really, like you said, you don't have the control of it. I know kind of where I'm at with it and can gauge myself with it just because I've done it enough. But same kind of thing, just low and slow. Don't be taking huge doinker rips. Like that's just going to put you on Mars. Like don't do that. And just try to enjoy it. Have a good mindset around it. Be relaxed. Find the right setting to do it in. I think those are all important things.
And I would say hybrid or indica are probably the two strains that I would start with.
I mean, I'm not going to tell someone what to do. I would start with hybrid.
I would start with hybrid and then navigate your way into sativa and indica and see which one you enjoy the best.
Yeah. I wouldn't try to get too crazy with it right away. Like just
hybrid's a pretty even Steven.
Yep. You'll be able to experiment with it as you go if you do like it.
Yeah.
I think that's something important to remember. And then as far as like finding it or going to a dispensary, I know a lot of people get intimidated going to dispensaries because they don't know what they're doing.
Most bud tenders are so nice.
Yes, so that's something to clarify is like people who work at those dispensaries, 9 times out of 10, the experiences that we've had, like they are so helpful.
Except for that one in Jefferson Park.
Yeah,
she hated us.
There was one lady, I think me and my buddy were she wasn't having our shit, so she just wanted to get us in and out. But everybody who works at those things are so helpful. Like
very educated.
They're not judgmental. They're very educated. That they are more than happy to help you out. But if you don't have access to those kinds of things, I would say if you can find trusted, reliable Delta 9 stores online or in your area, that's a good place to start as well. Yeah,
but for dispensaries, like, be honest with them. Like, be like, this is my first time here. I've never smoked before. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know what to get. Like, can you help me?
And you can do that at Delta 9 dispensaries.
At Delta 9, yeah. Most of the people we've met at Delta 9 ones are great too. They're all very educated. They have to be. Like, it's kind of part of the whole thing. So, like, just ask questions, and they're going to be helpful.
Yep. Those places are not intimidating at all. You do need to be 21 though.
Yeah, you do have to be 21. All right. Well, that answers all of the listener questions. And Zach and I have talked for a really long time. So hopefully all of you listened to the whole thing. I felt like we were pretty entertaining.
I enjoyed that. That was fun.
I enjoyed that as well. We'll have you back on.
Oh, thanks.
As long as the listeners like
Well, I kind of live here, so I can kind of like jump in whenever.
This is true. I was on a call the other day for a future brand deal, and they go, we were hoping Zach would make a cameo. And I was like, he's at work. So.
Yeah, if you guys ever want cameos of me, just let me know. I'll hop in.
Yeah. We've got some stuff planned with Zach this upcoming year, so we've got stuff going. But thank you all again for listening to the Simply Balanced podcast. I love you all, and I obviously could not do anything that I do without you, so I really appreciate you following along. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. If you feel like this would benefit or help someone that you know, please share, like, review, comment. All of that's going to help this show grow, which is what I ultimately want to do. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you, and I love you.
Yeah, please like, share, subscribe to this podcast. If you don't, I will hunt you down and respectfully tell you that you are wrong.
He won't do that.
Okay, love you guys. Okay,
love you, besties. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Simply Balanced. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing a part of your day with me. I hope you find inspiration in our discussion and feel more equipped to embrace the balanced girl aesthetic in your daily life. Remember, balance is a journey, not a destination. It's about finding what works for you in your unique way. As we part ways, I encourage you to reflect on one thing you learned today and how you can incorporate that into your life to create more balance. Don't forget to subscribe to Simply Balanced so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed our time together, consider leaving a review or sharing the podcast with a friend. Your support means the world, and until next time, keep striving for balance, nourish your body and mind, and remember to cherish life's simple pleasures. This is Taylor Grasso signing off. Stay balanced and see you next episode.